For generations, healthcare pioneers have given their lives to one fight: understanding and treating disease. They carry a vision for a healthier future and give us new ways to see it. First, the structure of life was revealed. Then, the function: how cells interact, lungs expand, signals fire. Life witnessed in real time. It once took years to decode this blueprint of life. Now it takes mere minutes to find a genetic clue. Today, we are recomputing the limits of healthcare with AI. Computers that understand the language of biology, learn from centuries of science to create digital labs. Simulations design new medicines, atom by atom, showing us how to make and test them. Scientists, AI agents, and robots are connected at the speed of innovation. So a breakthrough by one forms a new foundation for all. And AI works side by side with doctors and nurses 24/7, enhancing what they can see, lending an extra pair of hands, and extending what the human body is capable of. This isn't human versus machine. It's building upon the vision of our pioneers to create new possibilities for everyone.
We got to also get a big, amazing chunk of our creative team and our marketing team and so many of the pioneers in this room to make that amazing video. So for the pioneers who are here in the room with us, for those that are watching around the world, thank you. Every single line of code, every single trial we run, and every late night in the lab is for all of us to have this single human goal, giving us more time and healthier time. And so here at GTC, it's our job to help take the most incredible technological breakthroughs of our lifetime and put it in the context of healthcare so that you pioneers in this audience can rip them out of our hands and put them into some amazing life sciences and healthcare applications. And we're going to see so many of them today. I hope I can squeeze it in the 45 minutes they've allotted, but there's so much to talk about. As you know, we are at this incredible moment in time, experience agentic AI inflection points just moment after moment. The minute you think you've grokked language models, we've moved into agents. The minute we thought we knew agents, agents are now orchestrating other agents. What is so awesome about this particular technology is that the way it's architected is a complete new way of developing software, and it's opened the possibilities for it to be trusted and applied into healthcare from almost day one. This is unlike many other technologies. It still takes incredible might for us to understand the technology, to ground it in the knowledge that is so deeply embedded and domain-specific, to take advantage of some of the most important technological breakthroughs of agents, which is building them into things that can use other tools. This ability to use other tools and interact with older, antiquated systems of the healthcare industry is a huge, huge advantage for us to be able to take software like this, software in healthcare that used to be otherwise monolithic, and now break it into these specialized components, and really healthcare is going to become quite a mosaic of applications. And I'm going to show you how that's actually happening today and in very real time. In order to take advantage of this in the healthcare industry, some of what we need to have is models and open models. Why do we need open models? Well, there's a huge basis of information in the world that you need to lay into the foundation of these models, and then you need to domain customize them. If every single healthcare company tried to make their own foundation models for the ground up, we just wouldn't have enough time or money or capital investment in order to do so. And so companies like Nvidia are one of the most contributors to AI open source, not only models, but we have over 650, probably close to 700 open models now available, but we surround these models with so much more tools and data in order to help you. Now, we build foundational models in a couple very core areas that actually, if you think about healthcare, is a superset of so many applications. So on the left-hand side, you can see we have Nemotron for language models and agents. We have Earth 2, but it's really about physics. There's so much about what happens that is based in physics that we do in healthcare. BioNemo for biology AI, we've been building for quite some time. And on the other side of this, you see the physical AI world, which we're going to talk about a lot today because there is so much we can do in healthcare, yes, in silico, but there's absolutely a ton that must happen in the physical world. So we have Cosmos, that is our world foundation models. We have Groot, which is our robot brain models that are generalized, but then can be specialized for domain-specific applications. And of course, Alpamayo, the automotive industry and self-driving cars, which has helped us learn a lot about how we can apply automation into some of the critical areas of healthcare, like surgical robotics. And so, as I said, AI is not just a model alone, especially when it comes to deploying it into regulated environments like we have. Or I think you hear from a lot of our speakers today that just like all of you go into medicine and then you deeply specialize, or you go into science and you deeply specialize, all of these models also need to be specialized. So we create these amazing models where we pour deep amounts of investment and we open source them to you along with their data and all of the tools so that you can customize them in really, really exquisite ways. So you can get that specialization, you can look for all those cost optimizations. There's a lot of ability to look at high system accuracy across this. And we need to have transparency and control in a lot of our industries. And of course, in a lot of ways, these need to be sovereign, whether that's a large pharmaceutical company that wants to remain all of their data as their IP in sovereign, or it could be at a national level. And so Jensen kind of talked to you about this, and Carrie Brisky, you can go see her talk as well. Our NVIDIA agent toolkit in our Nemotron open models is a full AI lifecycle for agentic AI, complete end-to-end. It really starts, of course, with the data. You're going to see this pattern repeat itself for all of our open models, where it starts with the data. Yes, you can curate real-world data, but there's also a gigantic need for synthetic data, no matter what application space you're in. Jensen and the team have announced a barrage of amazing new models. We started Nemotron Nano, which a lot of the companies are using, but we just announced Super and Ultra. These open models have now reached the frontier in multimodal AI language models. We have easy ways for you to customize it. We have amazing ways now for you to take these models and go put them in the gym. Make them work out and really start to specialize on skills. And of course, we create these things called blueprints, which are essentially reference applications of how do you assemble these things in to do work. One of those is called IQ, where imagine if you want to take your whole company's data sources and expose it to an agent that you can now do deep research against all of that information. So just like you can do deep research now in some of the open models, but you wanted to do it on your proprietary data. So we created a blueprint for that. And so all of these tools here really have laid the foundation for this agentic digital health revolution. We're delighted to work with some of the most amazing companies in the space. As you know, we have the Nvidia Inception program. It's now bloomed to over 5,000 companies. Over 2,000 of those are in digital health. 85% of AI revenues in healthcare are flowing into the startup companies because they're completely thinking outside the box and solving some of the world's hardest problems. And they're doing it at amazing scale. So we're working with Heidi Health. They are a multilingual clinical documentation platform. They're working on 2.4 million conversations a week and doing that across 190 countries. Open Evidence, Daniel will be here right after me. They're now used by approximately 50% of the US clinicians in just a matter of 12 to 18 months for essentially, medical knowledge synthesis and putting consultations into medical doctors' context using trusted medical knowledge, taking that and having a real-time corpus of medical knowledge, because it's changing all the time, right into the hands of the doctors. And Sword Health is also in the booth here and on the exhibit floor, an amazing AI care company. Nvidia is actually a customer of Sword Health for physical therapy, so they have over 700,000 members that they're treating all the time and over 10 million sessions. And just last month, they recently released their new mental health platform. So these platforms are able to be deployed in such a way like when you download Uber or another application to your phone. They're easy to install, they're easy to understand how to use, right? So you have no barrier to entry from that, and they have an amazing way to scale because of how they're architected. And so they're using NVIDIA's agent toolkit, customizing them, domain specializing them, and then we work with every single one of them to cost optimize. I don't know if you remember seeing Jensen there holding his arms up as the inference king. NVIDIA absolutely focuses so much on inference because, just like he said, that round robin on that agent diagram, every single one of those things is inferencing, and it's multi-turn now, and then it's multi-system agents. So inferencing is a super hard problem to solve, and we are deeply, deeply focused on it. And we work with all these companies so they can benefit from the amazing capabilities of these systems, but in a way for the adoption to go through the roof and that our health system can really tolerate. We've been working with IQVIA for some time now, and they just announced IQVIA.ai here at GTC. This is their unified agent platform. It's taking all sorts of the NVIDIA agent toolkit, integrating it into a platform, of course using LangChain, as many of you here in this room I'm sure are, to rapidly build out agents, 150 agents across all sorts of different workflows. They've got deep, deep data sources and a data network that they've been building for decades. They have deep domain expertise in clinical research, and they're essentially building those and specializing agents to do everything from data review or field companion for pharmaceutical sales reps to have very different and meaningful conversations, or literature reviews for all sorts of things that need to happen in the regulatory environment. And one use case I love is around clinical trial site selection. They're trying to find all the right sites, and it used to take many, many weeks to do this kind of work, and now they're shrinking that into days. And every single day a clinical trial isn't delayed is literally money on the table, millions of dollars of money on the table. So IQVIA AI.ai, their new unified Agentic AI platform, and it's built like this. This is how, as Jensen was saying, software as a service and then agentic as a service platforms are being made here in real time. And this is the future of the global healthcare infrastructure. Again, it's no longer this sort of monolithic application that takes many years to install. It's going to be a mosaic of applications, ones with deep specialization, with exquisite and unique ways to operate. And it's tackling literally end-to-end, from a moment a patient steps in the door or even calls in to try to navigate or receive help, all the way to improving a patient and clinician's experience, to the back office workflow, all the way through to some of those clinical intelligence applications we were talking about a moment ago. And then when you leave the hospital, how do we make sure care continues in amazing, meaningful ways? So, Digital health agent boom is here, and agentic AI is, as you could imagine, finding its way into all sorts of places. Let's see how it's creating a new paradigm in science.
Scientific research is expensive and time-consuming. Reading papers, running analyses, testing hypotheses. Edison Scientific is building Cosmos, an AI scientist that can compress a 6-month research cycle into 1 day. Cosmos is not a single model. It's a coordinated system of agents running on Nvidia's AI models, compute, and CUDA libraries. Customized open-source Nematron models handle specialized tasks, while cloud models provide general intelligence. It starts with a prompt to see how small genetic changes in the brain might lead to Alzheimer's. The Edison Literature Agent uses Nematron Parse to scan millions of peer-reviewed papers, patents, and clinical trial records, separating text, figures, and formulas. From there, frontier models can extract insights from decades of Alzheimer's research. The Edison Analysis Agent processes large-scale biological data, accelerated by CUDA libraries, cuML and cuDF, and interpreted by Nematron to identify statistically significant genetic patterns linked to cell loss. And finally, the Edison Molecules Agent uses a model trained with Nvidia NeMo RL to reason over chemical structures and propose molecules that help prevent cell loss. Edison is advancing the search to cure diseases like Alzheimer's and accelerating the pace of discovery across every domain of science.
Incredible. Is the Edison team here? Did you guys make it here? I don't know if they made it here. Okay, great. Good to see you too. Awesome. Guys, it's just wildly incredible what we're about to do for science. If you just saw that, 6 months of work compressed into essentially a day, we are going to create an amazing additional challenge. Once we have all these amazing scientific ideas, the next thing we have to do is we've got to go test them. And there's 2 ways you're going to test ideas in the future. You're going to test them in a digital dry lab, I like to call it, and then you'll go test it in the real world, in a life sciences lab. Okay, so life sciences overall is a several trillion-dollar industry, and you're seeing it take a very different shape here with amazing technology. So you just saw Edison and their AI scientist, and that scientist is going to go clue into a digital AI factory for doing drug discovery, where we're going to talk a lot about our efforts in BioNeMo, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in lab automation. So we are entering the era of reasoning models in biology. We're now essentially in our 3rd generation. It's oddly kind of following a similar pattern to GPT. It was in the GPT 3, 3.5 to 4, where things in reasoning really started to take shape in the area of language models, and we've now gotten to that era. First, it was structure prediction. Second was really de novo design. And now we're into this sort of interaction design phase, and we're going to talk a lot about reasoning, and it's a really exciting time. And one of the things in all industries, in fact, that holds AI back is data. And so if you remember the AlphaFold moment, an exceptionally AlphaFold tool that won the Nobel Prize, really, because it reached experimental accuracy in its predictions. When you have a model that is able to reach experimental accuracy, you can turn that model into a data generator, right? And so first you need the real world data, and it was 50 years of experimentation to build these databases like the protein database. And it allowed for AlphaFold 2 to be born. And then once AlphaFold 2 was born, it was able to be used in inferencing and synthetically generate 200 million versus the 200,000 protein structures that existed. And that gave way to all of those models that you just saw on that previous slide. And so this concept, Jensen talked to you a little bit about it, but I think this really puts it into context, is compute is data. As these models improve in accuracy and capability, you can use them to generate data, and to go post-train models for all sorts of different tasks. And I just showed you how you could do that with AlphaFold 2, and Google DeepMind team did just that. And so we've been working on this problem for a long time, recognizing that it was still pretty computationally expensive to run AlphaFold 2. And so over the last couple of years, we were working on some really critical libraries. Q-equivariance that Jensen mentioned is now under the hood of every protein model out there. So these models understand 3D geometry. We worked on GPU MSA. So the MSA was on the CPU, and it was that huge bottleneck of AlphaFold. We moved all that to the GPU. And then thirdly, of course, all of our inferencing, which is the AI part of AlphaFold 2, and we made that as fast as humanly possible. So about 100x or more speed up. Now that we've been able to add that speed up, we can imagine using this model to generate even more complex data sets. And so we're super excited to be announcing a new AlphaFold protein complexes data set that is available for you and announced here at GTC. We worked with EMBL EBI, with Google DeepMind, and with Seoul National University to create this amazing data set of 30 million protein complexes ready for download. And the EMBL team is making these exquisite, very high quality, 1.7 of these available on their website of interactive structures. And so imagine these are complexes. The previous generation was really single molecule, monomer proteins. We're now doing complexes, which required essentially 100 times more compute for us to be able to predict these structures. And so it's just really, really beautiful what we can now do with such a large data set, and we're so happy that it's available for you. We can imagine continuing on this reasoning journey. We're also announcing today a new model in our Protina family. This is our third generation called Protina Complexa. This is a protein design reasoning model. If you look at the inputs of this model, it takes in a target, its hotspots, and then some design parameters, how you want it to search, how many designs do you want, and essentially under the hood, the AI generates a rough draft of the protein, and then it uses this built-in scoring system to constantly test it and refine it. And it keeps tweaking it until the design finds this perfect structure that obeys the laws of physics down to the atomic level. And so if you think about what's going on here, we're giving this model the ability to think. And this is a process that you've probably heard, which is test time compute. So just like us, when you kind of give us some time to go off and think a little bit longer, we generally come up with some better ideas. And so essentially, the more compute you have, you can expand the number of designs. And this protein complexa is actually extremely efficient. If you look at the previous model in this class, we're able to essentially compute twice the number of binders in the same computational footprint. So Protina Complexa, as the checkpoints are available to you and how it was built completely, we've worked with some amazing partners to not only that, it's so amazing and good that we worked with a bunch of great partners to do experimental validation. Just how good is this model? And so you can see that there's amazing validation here. So it's been rigorously tested. So on the right, with over 1 million binders that were tested, the Viva team successfully generated 16 binders for a very challenging target associated with a muscle wasting disorder. And for the first time, the University of Cambridge has the first computational design of a protein capable of binding to a carbohydrate antigen. All of these amazing results are in the paper, and it's just amazing to see how what we can do in silico is adding a lot more ideas and binders and designs by using some of the latest reasoning and test time compute capabilities. So we are squarely in the reasoning era of biology. What we need to then think about is compute, right? There's three challenges in AI. It's data, the algorithms, and then compute. One of the things we really needed to help the world unlock was the ability to compute larger and larger proteins. And so we worked on this framework called context parallelism. And this ability to essentially unlock the context window of what we can predict. So it shards these massive molecular complexes across GPUs, so you literally have unlimited ability, unlimited context window. And before, we were limited to a single GPU. So some of these proteins we were looking to explore, we just couldn't do it in a computer. It couldn't happen. Now we have literally unlimited, and we worked with an awesome set, again, of great researchers out there who are doing real work in the design, and they're testing it in their models with really, really incredible results. So we, again, package all of these amazing breakthroughs, whether it's data or awesome models or techniques like context parallelism or the really efficient inferencing of the best canonical models that are being put in production, all the way through to thinking about brand new ways that we're going to build analysis pipelines now that we can do things on timescales we never imagined in our blueprints. And so NVIDIA BioNeMo is just expanding immensely. We're growing our team. We are working with amazing, amazing partners around the world so that this digital dry lab, I like to call it, is getting more and more capable by the day. And as you heard Jensen today talk about AI factories, you're going to need BioNeMo and everything that it's doing and all of the data that we're going to be able to generate, all of the scientific ideas that we're going to be able to generate with AI scientists. We're going to need AI factories across life sciences. This is fundamentally changing the R&D process. What's also super important is all of these great ideas that are done in a computer have to make their way to the real world. So we have a bottleneck we need to be really cognizant of in the lab. And so lab automation is become a very hot topic. I saw some of my Thermo Fisher friends in here. And this is where agentic AI meets physical AI. We need to have spatial understanding, we need to have reasoning and planning, we need to have physical execution, and a lot of what you saw in the physical AI of Jensen's address is completely applicable here. We're working with some really great companies in this space as well, building on NVIDIA. So high-res is really using perception in really powerful ways to allow for it to adapt to the environment. So it's using sort of outside in to increase its precision in the lab and do really, really domain-specific, exquisite work and adapt to all different lab environments. TCAN is building an amazing orchestration engine using Nemotron, taking all the inputs of the lab to understand and better operate the lab, more efficiency. Really amazing. And then you have the third component is you actually need to act in the lab. And so in order to act, you want to build that vision language action model brain. You need the brains of the robots to understand the context around that it's working and be able to adapt in these environments. So OpenTrons has joined us here also at GTC. They have a really great demo in the booth, and then there are over tens of thousands of instruments out there using all of this technology to build more and more intelligence into lab automation and extend every single benchtop lab all the way through to how do you exquisitely automate it across the entire process. So this is the next wave of the wet lab as well. With all of these incredible breakthroughs, as I said, we are fundamentally shifting the traditional R&D and how it was done to something that is completely AI native, through and through. Whether it's how you do your science, or how you want to simulate molecules, or how you want to test molecules, AI is throughout. And so AI factories are absolutely essential. And we're really excited to be announcing, where's the Roche team? I know you're here, the lights are bright. Hi guys, wonderful to see you. They are scaling their NVIDIA AI factories to accelerate therapeutics and diagnostics development. Exactly why? Because all of we talked about. Roche is tripling their AI factory footprint to reach over 3,500 NVIDIA Blackwells across the US and European sites. AI is now fundamentally embedded in Genentech's lab in the loop. And all of their strategy is we're leveraging BioNeMo. We're working with them to optimize all of their AI model designs so they can put them into production at very high throughput. Roche's manufacturing divisions leveraging Nvidia Omniverse libraries so that they can build high fidelity digital twins so they can practice and optimize before manufacturing sites are even stood up. Their amazing diagnostics business, which we've been working with for a long time. I see Chuck, my longtime friend here, is using NVIDIA Parabricks and all of our accelerated computing platforms to build some amazing new diagnostic platforms and do these amazingly large genomics analysis workloads. And so Roche team very excited to extend our long collaboration and what we announced I think it was 2023 GTC with Genentech, and now you see it's completely infiltrated the entire Roche enterprise, and it's amazing, and we can't wait to continue working with you and see what you do. All right, we're going to move into healthcare for this last section. We need to scale global healthcare with physical AI. Just like I said, we're going to generate all these amazing ideas, but where the rubber hits the road is in the physical world. And when we think about, again, the idea of training robots, one of the biggest challenges is data. Even real-world data is very, very hard to come by. And then if you think about just the insane amount of permutations in the world for any one robot to operate, 160,000 unique and different looking hospitals. You have every operating room looks different. You have 72,000 medical procedures. I looked that up. I didn't even know there was that many. You have how many medical devices that are part of those medical procedures. So just the permutations here are just enormous and almost feel impossible. And so we see a future where there's going to be at least 3 classes of robots that we see really coming into fruition to drive this revolution. One is infrastructure as a robot. Think about, I've said it before, your hospital's going to become a robot, right? It's going to have to understand everything that's happening within it, right? The second type of robot are going to be kind of your service and delivery robots, the ones that are really taking action inside the hospital to get true work done. And then the third is kind of going to be these clinical, domain specialized assisted robots that are going to help do some really exquisite augmentation, which we need. And as we know, lots of the world doesn't even have access to surgery or surgeons. And so how do we extend that to even more parts of the world? We're going to need to do that. So you can see there's really 3 layers. I want to start with one. Around Project Rio. So in the NVIDIA team, our digital devices team has built out with amazing partners, Paratos, Advent Health, and Lightwheel, really this expression of a blueprint for hospital automation. So it really explains how first you can build your hospital digital twin that you're going to need. Once you have that twin, you can start collecting data, but you can also start generating a ton of data. And then you can start to train policies for all different type of robots to learn in. You've got to create the brain. That brain could be a hospital brain, as I said, a service delivery robot brain, or a clinical brain. So let me put Rio into action for you.
Hospitals today are facing chronic staff shortages. In the future, robots will work seamlessly alongside doctors and nurses to improve capacity and outcomes. But before they can assist, the hospital itself must become trainable. Project Rio is a blueprint for smart hospital automation and physical AI development. First, NUREC and Isaac Sim reconstruct the hospital as a physics-accurate simulation-ready digital twin. Skills are then captured through teleoperation and real-world data. Next, MinICGen scales the collected data to massively expand the training set. Simultaneously, Cosmos Transfer randomizes layouts, lighting, and object placement. Photorealistic domain transfer bridges the gap, ensuring sim-to-real alignment. Inside Isaac Lab, robots train using imitation and reinforcement learning with Groot, helping them generalize skills into real-world behavior. thousands of parallel experiments run simultaneously, optimizing policies for precision, timing, and safety. Edge cases are introduced, environmental variation is simulated. Once validated in simulation, policy moves to hardware. By the time a robot enters the hospital, it is already operated there, extensively in simulation. Together with Paratos AI, Lightwheel, and Advent Health, Project Rio is already powering smart hospital environments today. Hospitals tirelessly generate real-world experience. Project Rio transforms it into deployable intelligence.
Amazing. Great job, guys. Nice to see the Paratos team here. So that technology that you just saw is actually being deployed at Advent Health. It's entering the real world very quickly here because we have these advanced workflows and tools. Today, we are announcing yet another very important data set. It's the world's first and largest data set for surgical robotics. We had the pleasure of working with an amazing contribution of collaborators of over 35 globally to create this data set that for the first time exists. Let me explain OpenH. OpenH is over 750 hours of surgical video and kinematics paired together. This data has 11 different embodiments. And this data has allowed us to do some amazing things that I'm going to share with you. And it's the first one of its kind, and I think there's so many that contributed to it. But of course, we had CMR Surgical, Moon Surgical, Johns Hopkins University, and so many others, and we deeply appreciate it. And we love that we can be sort of this aggregator that can bring the world together, build such a powerful data set for us to see the amazing things that it will do. So once you have data, right, that is the very first challenge, and this is an amazing data set. The next thing you want to do is you want to train a brain. Okay, and so we call our brain, our robot brain models, GrootH. I call it that because it allows you to have an easy visual with all of our product names. And so GrootH is the first generalizable vision-language action model for surgical robotics. So what it takes in is it takes in an image, and then you give it a language prompt, and then it essentially outputs the action. Okay, and this is an amazing first-of-its-kind model that we have essentially post-trained in Nvidia's, our leaderboard Groot model, post-trained that for surgical robotics. And so the -H is for healthcare. Again, all of these things completely open for you to take advantage of. And then next, because we have 750 hours, kind of sounds like a lot because it was more than the 2 or 3 hours that existed in the world, but it's still not enough to deal with that complexity that I described of 160,000 different hospitals and rooms. And so we also created a huge family of technology called Cosmos H. So Cosmos for NVIDIA is our world foundation models. It helps models understand the context. And so these are world foundation models for surgical data generation, specifically surgical. As you know, trying to write code about the deformation of anatomy and all of that's been a decades-long challenge. And here we're kind of trying to break down those barriers. So first is Cosmos H surgical transfer. And what does that mean? It essentially means that you're taking a skill and you're going to practice it in a whole bunch of different environments. So one skill, many environments. That's one data set. Another data set is you want to predict the next action something might take. So I want to have many skills practice in just a single environment. Then you can take those data sets, go enhance your GrootH brain model because now it can learn from a whole bunch of different scenarios it's never seen before. You're introducing edge cases, you're introducing smoke, you're introducing all the stuff that happens during surgery so the model can get better and better and better. You're teaching it more and more skills. And then we have this other amazing model, it's really the first of its kind, called Surgical Simulator. So in silico now, you can take all those many skills and all of those many environments and really evaluate the robotic policy and do that all in silico before it ever gets deployed to the real world. So again, you see how when we put this all together, we've essentially assembled the first and only physical AI end-to-end platform for healthcare robotics, domain specific. So we're taking the amazing breakthroughs of self-driving cars, we're taking the amazing breakthroughs of generalized robotics, and we're helping specialize it, create all the recipes, the data, the starter models for you all to take them and really, really push the frontier of what's going to happen in healthcare robotics. And as I say, healthcare robotics is going to take all shapes and forms. So we put this together. You can find all of this on GitHub and Hugging Face. We publish all of the recipes. We have a developer day on Thursday. I know a lot of you are going to attend. And so hopefully we can continue to, again, expand, and give you what you need. And as I said, the amount of robotics that healthcare robotics encompasses, it is the hospitals themselves. The rooms become robots. You have surgical robots, imaging robots, nursing robots, caretaker robots. We're going to see robots of all time, of all kinds, so that we can, one, allow for all of our healthcare professionals to not have to do some of the things that aren't at the top of their license and free them up for all of that. And we're gonna change patient experience in very, very material ways. And so with that, we're scaling healthcare with AI. We all want to increase access. We all want to improve care. We all want to be armed with the information that's needed at the time when it's needed. And this is an exquisite time to do so.